podcast, TruthSeekahs podcast. Buckle up, everyone. We're going to talk aliens, UFOs, ghosts, spiritual and paranormal. From all of the three moons, beyond your wildest dreams. Dead Tony. Nice.
TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark's at it.
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark's at it stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, TruthSeekah, and I always say that I'm excited and delighted to be with you guys, and I always am. Time for another episode, man, and we're going to be talking about spirituality, spiritual things, spiritual topics, and so leaving no stone unturned. We're going to get to the bottom of it. It's going to be really good. I'm joined by a good friend today, so make sure you guys stick around. It's going to be really good. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who is supporting my work via Patreon. This is a listener-supported, listener-funded show. Doesn't exist without your help. So thank you guys for co-creating with me to bring this out to the masses. I want to give a quick shout out to some of the latest patrons that we have within the last week or so. Shout out to Abigail Squires. Shout out to Natani AG. Shout out to you, my friend Cody Richardson and Devin. Thank you guys so much for joining and partnering with the work. If you'd like to support, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music. You get discounts on merch and really cool stuff like that. Our Thursday night School of the Mystics, you get access to that. That's the community aspect to what we're building here. We do a open discussion. If you have any questions, need prayer, that kind of stuff. We do guided meditations, ascensions, and tapping in through breath work as well, which is really good. We'll be doing that tonight. Do some intense breath work. If you need to get some stress off, if you need to just kind of breathe through some things, make sure you join us. You get access to all that stuff for $1. And there's some bunch of different stuff there at Patreon. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Make sure you guys check it out. Also, I want to say that my book is here for those of you who have not had a chance to get it yet. Spirit Realm, Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God. Make sure you get that. TruthSeekah.com. It's available there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in today's guest, which is my dear friend. I mention his name as much as I can. Chris Carter. Bro, welcome to the podcast again. How are you?
Hey, it's good. It's good to be here. It's good to see you again too, man.
Yeah, like I said, man, I mention your name as much as I can. I try to turn people on to you and love what you're about, love what you bring to the table, all that good stuff.
Thanks, bro. It's mutual. I love talking about you too. I love everything you do.
Yeah,
it's good.
Bro. Thank you. And just so people know, and I mentioned this, I don't really reference who it was, but I'll do it now. You know, I have some people that I trust in my life and people that I roll ideas off of. And so when I was getting ready to put my book out and just asking for some pointers and stuff like that, I was perplexed about leaving a couple things out of this book. And so you guys have heard me talk about that there was a couple things I was like, might be too deep, might be too scary, leave it out. The Christians will love it. You know, but because there was a bigger Christian audience that was, you know, consuming my content for a while. So I was perplexed about leaving a couple things out. And a lot of it was dealing with plant entities and plant teachers, and it was dealing with UFOs. And I thought that it would just be too much. So I confided in Chris Carter. And I said, Chris, there's some things that I'm thinking about leaving out. I don't want to do it. I'm not sure. Should I leave it out? Should I put it in? And he said, you know, we would expect you to put it in there. This is the kind of stuff that you bring to the table. And this is why we listen to you and check out your work, because you are the Christian that talks about these stuff. So if you guys don't like the fact that it's in there, blame Chris Carter, not me.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad I know I'm getting blamed for that. That's good.
Yeah. So
hey, now listen, you have to be true to who you are.
Yep.
And you can't be someone different. It doesn't come across as authentic, you know? Yeah. And I got to tell you that I suffer from a disorder, and you probably suffer from it too. That I call it when you see a flashing red button that says "Don't push," you can't help but push it.
Yeah.
And you probably suffer from the same disorder, but like I can't not press the button. Like if it's there and it's like, "Don't press this, it'll cause a problem." I'm like, I'm gonna press it. Yeah. I can't help it. I've got to do it. You know.
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit more lax with that now, but definitely as a kid. As soon as you turn your head, I'm getting into it.
Oh, man.
I'm taking it apart. You know, the remote control, right. I'm taking it apart. Like, I don't know if I can put it back together, but I'm trying it. But, I mean, like you said, man, you know, authenticity is key. And, you know, whatever platform that I've built has been built upon authenticity and just speaking my truth, and at least where I'm at, and being open and honest. And why stop now? You know, why stop now? So it's like just identifying even that voice that says, hey, don't do it, man. Like if it's the voice of the Lord, that's one thing, but being perplexed within your own, you know, spirit and trying to figure it out. It's identifying the voice that says no, and why it says no. It's because I want you to like me. Oh, hold on. Wait. You just like the fear of men. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for talking with me and helping me kind of work through some of those things, man. It really went a long way in that, you know.
Well, you know, don't you love about what we do, especially like in this, let's just call it the field that we're working in, that I feel like, and this is my favorite part about my job, is that the only guarantee I have is that I'm not going to be right about everything. So that takes this pressure off that, you know, that would say previously that you're not allowed to say something that's far out. You're not allowed to push the envelope or to stretch what we think is a normal conversation, a normal spiritual conversation to have, even a normal biblical conversation to have. And I'm like, well, let's do it. Like, let's put the stuff out there and just know that I'm not going to get everything right. But if it starts a conversation, then I believe God is in that conversation, right? Like then something good can happen, right? Because we put it out there and we were like, listen, work with it, chew it, spit it out, change it. I don't know, just but deal with it and let's talk about it and see what kind of good fruit can come out of that. So it makes me really glad that I'm not doing this 500 years ago, where you could only say certain things and have any platform at all. I mean, we're living in this time where we get to explore uncharted territory, knowing that we're not always going to hit it right on the mark, but the process of doing it, the process of exploring it, it's worth it. It's totally worth it.
Yeah. For me, I like to play the devil's advocate of just kind of getting to the bottom, or even maybe bringing the flip side to a conversation or of a biblical doctrine. Well, what about this, you know? And even with that, understanding that all things are true, really, if you believe them. That for one thing to be true, then the opposite has to be true. And the scriptures don't really, you know, give you vice and versa every time. But if there's a biblical doctrine that says, if you do this, this will happen, well, then the opposite's true, that if you don't do this, this will happen, and things like that. So I really like to explore many different doctrines or belief systems or spiritual technologies, if you will, from many perspectives, because I feel like there's somebody who has a different perspective on it. It may not be right, but it's a different perspective, and maybe it is right. Like, thank God that we have those people that we've listened to that really changed our paradigm or helped us and just given us a different point of view from what we've been even taught or believed for years, and snatches you out of your cognitive dissonance, you know what I'm saying, and gives you freedom, really.
Right.
Shaking you out of those beliefs. So it's really and a lot of that comes from the imagination. There was a comment. It's interesting that we're doing this show now, because I got a comment on the first show that we did together, and somebody was kind of, I don't know if they were taking like a religious dig at you, but they were like, this is just going into the imagination and the land. He said imagination land, and taking you to meet stuff. And he actually said like Frozen. He takes you to Winterland like Frozen. I think he was taking a dig, but I commented and I was like, everything that you see comes out of imagination land.
Yes.
Like everything that's here, all the technology, everything around us, it comes out of the imagination. So why not take a conscious trip to imagination land and create something?
Right.
What would you say to like naysayers or whatever that would say it's all in your head, it's not real? And when I say that, I'm talking about the ascensions and the guided meditations type journeys that you like to take people on and things like that.
Yeah, I tell you, one of my favorite books changed my life, because I thought I was really crazy until I read this book. But it was by this old British philosopher who's dead now. He died in 1997, named Owen Barfield, and I talk about him all the time. Yeah. Because I feel like I got to give credit where credit is due. And, whenever I talk about him, people are like, who's Owen Barfield? And I was like, well, let me give you a little bit of credence for what he said. He's the guy that brought C.S. Lewis to his Christian faith. And he's also the guy that C.S. Lewis said, Barfield is the wisest and best of my unofficial teachers. So the guy had to have something. But I read his book, Saving the Appearances, years ago, at a time when I was experiencing this life, in the heavenly places through the imagination. I was experiencing the angelic realm as the personification of nature. And there was no one around. I mean, obviously you know this, like no one was saying that. There's no one that's like, hey, by the way, many Christians have thought this. Now it turns out they have, but no one tells you that. No one tells you about St. Francis and how he pictured the sun as a spiritual being and the moon as a spiritual being. And no one tells you about Patrick. No one tells you about even St. Augustine or Augustine, however people say it, when he said he didn't think you could step on a blade of grass without touching an angel. But I ended up coming across this book that Barfield wrote called Saving the Appearances. And the first chapter, and this book made me realize that I'm actually sane. Like I'm not crazy, someone like 100 years ago, practically, he wrote it in the 1930s. So it was a long time ago. Someone said these things before I ever experienced them. But the first chapter of his book, or maybe the first couple chapters, he just talks about the rainbow. And I had never, here I was, long since studied physics in college. Of course, we talked about optics, and refraction and diffraction of light. But I'd never thought about it this way until he just says, think of a rainbow. The only place that rainbow exists is in your eye. There is no rainbow out there. And I was like, here I am, the scientist. I was like, wait, what? there's no rainbow? And he's like, no, it's simply the refraction of light. There is no semicircle of colors in the sky somewhere. The only place it exists is in the back of your retina. And it's simply because the light's going through water droplets and separating into its colors. And those various wavelengths of light go inside your pupil and hit the back of your retina already separated into their colors, because the droplets of water and you see them after a storm typically, because there's droplets of water in the air and they act like prisms. So it simply separates the colors. The only place it exists is inside us. And then he goes on to make this point that's essentially true for what you just said, brother. Everything around you, you have figured inside you into the images that you see. So he's like, why do we see the tree as trunk, branches, leaves? Why don't we see molecules, cellulose, photosynthesizing things? Why don't we see that? Or why don't we see the macro of it either? Like somehow we're designed to figure it at this level to where we see this form of trunk leaves. But he's like, that's not because that's what a tree is. That's just what inside our brains we interpret the information, the light that comes in, and we go, oh, it looks like a trunk and branches and leaves. But he's like, but it's not because that's what it is. It's a tree only because that's what it is inside of us, not because that's how you could see it or that's the only way to see it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I mean, even just thinking about like if you know what a tree is and how they, like, I think the spiritual aspect is the fact that many people just see a tree, like you said, but knowing that the mycelium, that they're like having a conversation under the ground and they're all connected, and then they are like the lungs of the earth, right? They filter the air. Like there's so much more. Unless you've been taught that, unless somebody told you that, it's just a tree. Yeah. It's not magical. It's not special. It's just a tree.
So true. So he just goes on. I mean, like, this is what blew my mind when I read the book, is that the way that he just sort of changed the way that I thought. I mean, I just assumed, well, they're trees because that's what they are. And so we see them because that's what they are. And his whole point was that's not what they are. That's what we've chosen to perceive. And that has occurred inside of us. We've figured the form of a tree inside of us, not because that's necessarily what it is. Just like the rainbow in that respect.
Yep. You know,
man, there was no going back after that. You know?
That's deep you say that, because I was talking about personas.
Yeah.
And this is what you see, and you can't see past that. And whether it's, you know, I did a monologue yesterday on a podcast where I was just talking about how, like, you know, I talk to everybody. And I talk to psychics, I talk to mediums, I talk to pastors, I talk to evangelists, I talk to prophets, I talk to hip-hop artists, I talk to rock and roll artists, worship leaders, everybody you can think of. And it's like, I got to thinking, like, I've been judged for that, you know? But it's like, to look deeper is like, hold on, I've never talked to a psychic. I've never talked to a pastor. I talk to people. Right. I talk to people. You go past the persona, and that persona can scare people. Stay away from him. He's this. Stay away. Hold on. That's a person. That's a person. I'm not scared of your persona. Even on the job site, I kind of gave the example of, you know, I remember working on a job site and the guys from corporate came down, and everybody's on their best behavior. They're making sure they do everything to the T, and don't let them see you mess up, man. Don't let them see you drop something. Don't let them see you trip. And even when it was time to meet him, it was cordial. Hey, how are you? You know, let's be, hey, shake his hand and, hey, good to see you. And nobody's playing, nobody's joking. As soon as they leave, you go back to, okay, wow, he's gone. But I got to work with some of the guys from corporate. They took me on a route with them. We did a route together. And as soon as we got in the truck together, that persona fell because he became a regular person, a human being that puts his pants on one leg at a time. And all of these weird, watch out. I was like, hold on, this is a guy. He's just like me, you know? And so, and then the next day we go on the job. He comes up to me. He doesn't call me Derek. He's like, TruthSeekah. And everybody's like, oh, y'all are cool now? It's like, yeah. And so it just, for some reason, that made me look past the personas that we project on people. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And I feel like the scriptures where, you know, the Lord says that man judges by the outer appearance, but God judges the heart. And I think that's what was different about Jesus with all of these people who came to him, even people with the woman with the issue of blood or the rich young ruler. And we know them by their ailments. We know them by their persona or their flaw. But Jesus was able to see through those things and see the person for who they really are, and to speak to the soul and to the spirit of a person. And so I think that working through you have to use the imagination to do that. You have to work through your consciousness and how you perceive things. And so it's so powerful, man, that people need to understand that we're just people, and we're figuring this stuff out, and it's dealing with these conscious personas, and we're projecting things on people that they are not. You're a person. You know what I'm saying? So you're not your title. This is a facade. You know, to get down to the soul of it, man. I think there's power there.
I agree. Now I got to ask: have you seen recently the series called The Chosen? Have
No.
you watched
The
that?
Jesus one?
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
It's worth watching though. I've been hearing good reviews.
Okay. Here's the deal. Anytime someone in the past, and this relates to what you were just saying, anytime someone in the past was like, hey, someone did a movie or someone did a TV show about something biblical or about Jesus, I'm out. I'm
Wow.
like, it's not going to be good, right? It's going to either be really religious or it's just going to be bad. Like it's not ever going to be one of, like everything I've ever seen was like, it always fit one of those two categories. And we started watching this and, and we've talked about this before. I mean, it's not going to be a shock to anybody that knows either of us here that in all of my journeys in the heavens and the spirit, talking with the risen Lord, it's so rare to see someone portray him the way that I've experienced him, which is really down to earth, really human, making jokes, sometimes at my expense, and I don't even always think it's funny, but he does, And I mean, I'm serious. He's made jokes sometimes when I was like hurting and like in pain and in a bad situation. And he would like made a joke at me and I was like, that's not funny. And he's like, no, it is. It's really funny. One day you'll think it's funny too.
Yeah.
But anyway, this series, this Chosen series is not religious and it's well done. And it's the picture of Jesus that is the one that I have been experiencing through the eyes of my heart all of these years. And the amazing thing about it is I think it reintroduced me because I hadn't thought about this for a long time. It showed me just how much he did what you were just describing. Like the thing that people were on the outside, that name, that title, that whatever, that never stopped him from engaging with them. It never got in the way of relationship.
That
like
person's a prostitute. Why are you with the prostitutes?
Yes, and that's actually episode
I'm
1.
With the people.
Yeah, that's the first episode that it tackles is him and Mary, and I was a wreck. I mean, you laugh, you cry, you cheer, you do it all. Like through watching it, it's good. Definitely take the time to do it. Nice. It's binge watch worthy. But it's just like that, man. It portrays that so well, how much he is not wrapped up in, I can't talk to you because, and then fill in the blank. He's always like, you're a person, you're made in God's image. We're going to talk, like we're going to get to know each other.
And there's nobody that's not, man. It's so crazy, and I'll say this too, maybe this had something to do with it early on for me, but when I was really big into the occult and witchcraft back in the day, my so-called guru, the warlock guy who used to teach me, when I got born again, we ended up moving back to the same town as he was, and I'd get nervous driving by his where he lived because I knew how much like occult power he had, kind of thing, and so I was still nervous. Like deep down, like you want to save him, you want to minister to, but I do not want to see him because I don't think I can handle it. He's, you know what I'm saying? It was really hard for me. And there was one day I was driving by there because I had to go home and I think the road was closed, so we went the back way and I seen him walking down the street wearing all black, this older dude. I'm like, don't make eye contact. I haven't seen him in, a year and a half or whatever. I got born again. Don't make eye contact. Boom. It's like, wow. So it just seems like something that would never happen. And I was intimidated by him. But then one day I was at GameStop, getting a video game or something. I'm in the back of the store and it's a small store and ding-ling, door opens and he comes walking in with another guy. And I'm like in the back, kind of like trapped. Like I got to face him. He's coming in. So I'm like, hey, Pops, how's it going? And he was just like, for some reason, the Lord let me see his humanity. He was just goofy. Hey, man, how's it going? I'm just here to get a video game. And I was like, wow, the big bad wolf is, a human, a silly, goofy gamer. It was a side of him, but I didn't see the big, what I had painted him up to be in my mind. And from that point on, I started having compassion for him, and that giant in my mind faded away.
Wow. Right on.
Being able to see him. Have you had those experiences where like once you get to know the person, it changes? I mean, I think we all go through that. Hopefully, I say go through it. Some people never, break through that, I think.
I don't think I've ever gotten to know one person that when you get to know them, if you were in any way intimidated, and you just get to know them, and then you realize every single person is in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
Like we are all ultimately pretty much doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
And every person that's married gets up in the morning and they're like, okay, let's work on this marriage today. Like every person, right?
Yeah.
Every person that has kids is like, all right, let's work on this today. I mean, everybody's going to their job. Everybody's essentially doing the same thing. And like you said, like there's people like you're intimidated. I don't know. Or, like I was just around people last week and family members. And as much as I try not to, I feel like I've got to be impressive. I need them to respect me.
Yeah.
And then you just start talking and you're like, what am I doing? We are all in the same boat. Yeah. Everybody's doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's working through stuff. Everybody's got things they do great. Everybody's got things that they're really bad at. And you see it and you're like, oh, they're exactly like me.
Mm-hmm. That would even be like, going back to the job site thing of like going to a business. Like I would deliver car parts and I would go and collect checks, and then you have to go in the office and you meet the people for the first time. And it's kind of weird. Like you want to be professional. Hey, how's it going? And you need to get a check. Right. And then eventually, as it's real formal and you're standing in line and stuff, then eventually I'm going back behind the counter. I'm making jokes with the people. I'm going all the way. I know the ins and outs of that. I see that space like they see it. But as an outsider coming in, it's like you're kind of nervous, like, hey. Then eventually it's like, hey, I'm part of this. So we even do that with places, and again, it's these structures that's not even there. They don't see it the way you see it. To them, it's like we're here all day and this is our home space. But when a stranger comes in, it's like I have to get used to this place. It's just weird, just working through these unfamiliar, uncharted territories that become familiar. And I think that again, it's all in the imagination. Nothing changed. It's just a way that we see things. There's a quote that says, if you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at will change.
I like that.
Have a different relationship with your environment.
Yeah. That's good.
Seeing into people, seeing into objects, the plants and those kind of things. And so, man, it's pretty deep, man. It's a consciousness. It all comes back down to consciousness.
We're getting philosophical.
Yeah.
Right.
Good stuff. So, man, let's talk a little bit about one thing that you bring to the table that always excites me is you talk about this shift. We're going through another one, but you talk about a shift like from like the Renaissance time to the Industrial Revolution, and there was a huge shift in consciousness and particularly the way that we interacted with nature, with magic, even magic as far as just seeing everything as being alive, seeing everything having a spirit, everything having a consciousness, whether it's dealing with the plants and the trees and the angels. And I mean, Renaissance art embodied all of this stuff, but there was a period where we stepped away from that, and you kind of pinpointed during the Industrial Revolution. Can you talk a little bit about what changed there and into some detail in our relationship with nature and with each other?
Absolutely. And I tell you, this is like, I'm real serious about this, right? And I joke whenever I do conferences that if I could get away with this would be the only thing I would teach when I would go speak. Because to me, this is the key to understanding our modern age, where we've come from and where we're going. But the problem is that it can sometimes bog down a little bit philosophically and academically. And it's like, you'll lose the room if this is all you did, So you have to talk about other things. But if I could get away with it, this is all I would talk about. And again, you have to give credit where it's due here. I would not have understood this, again, if it weren't for the work of Owen Barfield, who I'd never heard the scientific revolution described until I read his book, Saving the Appearances. And then that, again, gave credence to everything that I was experiencing in my own life. But I mean, like in a nutshell, 400 years ago, everything changed. And we don't even know it. It changed things so completely that it actually erased our memory of where we had come from. And so for 98% of human history, we're talking, if we're just going to go on a biblical narrative, 5,650 years of human history, and every single person that walked the earth took it for granted that everything that they sensed in the cosmos, that wasn't the end of the story, that everything had some kind of spiritual being that was personifying it, inhabiting it, that, if you saw a planet or the sun or the moon or a tree or a rock or an ocean, or you felt a virtue like generosity or courage, that those were simply representations of that spiritual reality, those spiritual beings. And everybody took that for granted. Like it would just never occur to them that there was some other way to see the world. And then, of course, that includes the Messiah. This is like the part that I'm just like, how did we not know this, right? It was right there in the pages that when he talks to the wind and he talks to the waves, he's speaking to someone. And the wind and the wave was the representation of that someone. And when he talks to the tree and he tells his disciples to talk to the mountain, he suggests that if people stop praising, the rocks will talk. He's affirming, I guess, the reality that they all took for granted. But for us, it's weird. Mm-hmm. And it's only weird because the world went through this scientific revolution. And I'm going to do everybody a favor that listens to this right now. I'm going to spare you from reading Owen Barfield's book, Saving the Appearances, because it is a difficult task to get through that book. He did not write it with any of us in mind. So it's really dense. It's very dense. But here it is in a nutshell. What happened in the scientific revolution is our math got good. And people that were natural philosophers, that were looking at nature and the cosmos, we've always been trying to predict how nature will behave. Could we predict the next eclipse? Could we predict why the waves work the way that they do? I mean, it's just always been human pursuit, because we were always thinking we'd like to know what those spiritual beings are doing. So if we could predict the motion and the behavior of the objects in nature, we would have a better idea of those spiritual beings, right? So that was always the idea. And we'd make models to kind of describe what they were doing. In the 1600s, we had Newton, Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo. All of their work spanned, over 100 years or so. It did this. It said, if we can create a model that explains the behavior of nature seemingly without error, then that's all the truth there is to know. That's the scientific revolution in a nutshell. It just saved you, everybody that's listening, tons of time. All right. So there it is. That's the giant change. If we can make a model that explains the motion of the planets, the sun and the moon, or how nature does what it does, how the tides work, why leaves photosynthesize, and it seemingly works without error, then that's the end of truth. There's no need for a spiritual reality at all. And so that cut off from our consciousness what 98% of human history took for granted, that there's this spiritual being reality in all of the cosmos and every aspect of nature, both the tangible matter stuff and then the intangible things like virtues, that it was all spiritual. The effects of that are crazy because you can see what it did. It changed the idea that the cosmos was a spiritual place like a temple. And it changed it to the idea that the cosmos was a machine and that it's just about input, output. Mm-hmm. There's nothing behind the curtain to even participate with anymore. So you understand the sun is an object, you're done. You understand the tree is this photosynthesizing thing, you're done. You understand that mountains are made up of, various rock, and that's just elements and minerals and compounds, you're done. That's all the truth there is. There's no personality to engage with. Now, obviously, I don't think that's the end of where the story should be, or we wouldn't be having this conversation today. It wouldn't be anything to talk about. It would just be like, well, that sucks, Now, everyone else had all the fun. They got to live in this Narnia-like world, and here we are in this empty machine industrial thing that doesn't have any life in it or meaning in it, and that's what happens when you take spirit out. You end up taking meaning out. I tell my students this, I teach, or I did, I'm taking a sabbatical this next year, but I did teach philosophy to high school seniors. And I would always tell them the challenge of your day is going to be how to rediscover meaning in your world, because it's all gone. It's gone as we took spirit out of our world. When you're left with objects, you're left with meaninglessness. And so the thing I'm always pointing everyone to is that Romans chapter 8 moment where Paul says that all of creation, the entire cosmos, is groaning, moaning, waiting for the sons of God to be revealed, because when they're revealed, they can free the creation. And to me, that looks like renewing it. That looks like bringing all of what we had lost back into the picture. We're not going to go backwards, because that's not the way forward. It's never backwards. But the way forward certainly isn't the direction we're going either. It's got to be some newly charted course that brings back into our consciousness that spiritual being reality was real, or we kind of have to discount 98% of human history. And then the trouble with that is that's when the Gospels were written too, so you can't do that, right? You have to know that they're telling the truth. They were just seeing kind of a different part of the world than we see today. So that's it in a nutshell right there.
Now, engaging with that outside of ascensions, right? There's ascensions and doing meditations to kind of consciously go in. Those are ways to engage, but engaging with the elements, with the spirits outside of that in your day to day. Say when you go to the beach. Say when you're in the sun, and the sun is there's a relationship with that sun. It's giving you vitamin D and or C and a bunch of stuff's happening. The grass, the trees, hugging the tree. All of understanding that Gaia, the earth is alive. The earth is a being as well. How does that look in engaging with that in real time versus like going in the imagination or the ascensions to do it? Like, how does that look? How does your relationship look when you feel the wind blow? Is there, for me, it's immediate gratitude. It's like, hey, I know you're there kind of thing. Like, how does that look for you?
Yeah, that's maybe that's the best question of all, is the one you just asked, is, okay, so how does it play out? So I'm a big fan of the way that Jesus demonstrates kingship, because it's so counter to the world. So Jesus never wants to rule anything he doesn't know. So he only rules via relationship. He never rules he's not interested in anybody paying homage to him. He's never asking people to come kiss his ring. His first, it's just like what we started this conversation with, Derek, is he wants to know you. And then he knows if you get to know each other, you'll figure it out that he's a king, but he doesn't need you to come kiss his ring. He doesn't need you to pay homage. He rules via relationship. If we're going to step into dominion as humans in this cosmos, it will be because of relationships. So as I got to know the wind and the waves and the mountains and the trees and the earth and the stars, it took time, right? It took time out of my day and my person to go, all right, I feel you. I know you're there. Who are you? What's your name? I know there's probably thousands of spiritual beings that could represent the ocean, but I bet there's one, at least one, that's connected to me, that represents the ocean. And I want to know that one, right? So I love the storm. I love thunderstorms. I just think they're beautiful. I think they're powerful. I'm always in awe of them. And so early on, I would always see this spiritual being. Now I'm using the eyes of my heart. I'm using the imagination to do this, but it's building a relationship that got stronger over time. So I'm seeing the spiritual being in the clouds that I knew by the name Marshall. Giant, powerful presence, And, when we just, I don't know, over, walking in a summer afternoon, I would see him in the building thunderstorms, and we would always converse. So this is a fun story about how this played out. I tell this story all the time because it was like a foundational moment for me that I thought, okay, I'm not crazy. So I got invited to officiate my buddy's wedding years ago in Baltimore, Maryland. Summer wedding, and it's outside. It's in the courtyard in downtown Baltimore. Forecast for the day is great until about 4:00, and then it's thunderstorms. Their wedding was at like 4:30 or 5 or something. So we get to the place, we're setting up in this courtyard, skyscrapers all around. And I'm telling you, the sky was already deteriorating. Like, you could tell storms are coming. Now, like any good wedding officiant, I had prepared like a 10-minute version of this wedding in my head. Like, if it gets bad, I'm gonna be like, do you kiss her? Let's go. Let's get out of here. We were going to do this if we had to do it quick and in the rain, So the time comes for the wedding. These clouds are building. It looks bad. And this buddy of mine had kind of like a Jewish Hebrew background. So they're getting married under what was called the huppah, like a canopy with 4 poles. And so everybody comes in. I ask the dad, who gives this woman to be married? All that stuff is done. They have a time where there's some music being played, and I got to kind of like step back. And that's when the wind started to pick up and the storm started to come in. And my buddy, the groom, is having to hold the pole of the huppah because the wind's threatening to blow it over. And that's when I felt the first drop of rain hit my nose. And I said in that moment, okay, I know the storm. I've met him. I've met the spiritual being. We've talked so many times. I'm going to go talk to him right now. So I said, all right, Marshall, where are you? And he comes right in front of me. I'm using the eyes of my heart, right? And I look at him and I just said, I need your help right now. And he looks at me and he goes, it won't rain. And then I watch him fly up, just using the eyes of my imagination. And I watch him perch on the skyscraper.
So with that, did you facilitate the imagination? Like, I'm going to call you down and I'm going to see you come and talk to me. Then I'm going to see you leaving. Or did it just pop in for you?
Bro, I was the one that initiated.
Okay.
Because I was like, I know him. I might as well put this to work.
Yeah.
Like we're at this point, we're friends, right? I mean, it's been years of building a relationship. And over the years of building the relationship, sometimes it was me and sometimes it popped in.
Okay.
But it's like, if I want to get a hold of you, like I know your number, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so like I can get a hold of you because we have relationship. Like I know if I'm traveling through your area and I can stop and see you, maybe not everybody gets that, right? But I know how to get a hold of you.
Hey,
right?
say that again. Go ahead.
So because we've talked, like we've developed something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times when you reach out to me, there's times when I reach out to you, but man, if I needed you, I know how to get you.
Yeah.
If you need me, you know how to get me. And so I watch him fly up. I watch all of his buddies come out of the storm clouds and perch themselves on the skyscrapers around this courtyard.
Did you facilitate that, or did you initiating end up having,
that part I felt like was just happening.
Okay.
So I initiated the conversation and then I became the observer.
Okay.
So then I'm watching it all come around. Okay, so this is not a joke, and I know it's hard to believe. So if no one believes me because you weren't there, I totally understand. But not only did it not rain, but those clouds parted and the sun's rays peeked through a hole in the clouds and lit up the huppah. We did the entire hour ceremony. Not anything, no wind, not a drop of rain, no nothing. And, they kiss each other. I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Off they go. I've dismissed the wedding party. Now I'm dismissing the people, like the whole crowd of people in the courtyard. Off you go to the reception, wherever it was held, thankfully indoors, So half the people had left. I'm still up there smiling in my robe, like just being the good guy. And the clouds opened up and the rain came down in a sheet. It just came down like someone had dropped a bucket in this courtyard. And the wind came through in gusts. I was trying to save this piece of like fine china that they had taken communion with.
Yeah.
And the table it was on was threatening to blow over. And as I'm saving the china, the huppah finally gives out. And a pole, as it blows over, cracks me in the back of the head. It's not a joke. At which point, and I didn't do this in the eyes of my heart, I said this out loud because everybody's running for cover. No one's watching me. I looked up at Marshall where he was perched on that building. And I said out loud, really? And he looks down at me and goes, were you hurt?
Mm-hmm.
And I went, no. And he goes, buddy, you asked for an hour. We gave you an hour. He was like, if you wanted an hour and 10 minutes, you better be specific next time. And it became this joke of an experience, right? Like it was funny. It ended in me being soaked. It ended in laughter. But I'm telling you, that was one of those moments that I walked away from and went, I will never doubt this reality and that I'm designed to create a relationship with it so that it's not something that's unknown for me. It becomes like a friendship. And it makes me think of, if you've ever read about the life of Patrick, like St. Patrick in Ireland, it said of Patrick, he had an angel he met with every week named Victor. It was Victor. It was short for Victoricus. Patrick called him a nickname because they were so close, him and this angel. And it said, Patrick met with Victor like a man meets with his friend. And that to me is a picture of where we're headed, is that kind of a relationship with the angelic world. And if you get the scientific revolution, if you get that key, then you know that the angelic world is connected, is represented in all of the aspects of the world around us, in nature and in the cosmos. So you put all those pieces together and maybe we can see where this thing is going, you know?
That's awesome. So you mentioned that with the wind, engaging the wind and these different entities and things like that. And then I know you've been mentioning mountains and stuff and the grass and the trees and things like that. And I'm sure for each element, and then elements within the elements as well being alive. And I'm sure we can go into great detail, but even having a story like that, going back to Disney and Pixar, there's these types of stories where they embodied the essence of nature as being fairies and pixies and the wind slapping you. And I mean, there's literally like Disney movies where the wind has a face and it's doing stuff, and maybe even looking at like, what was it? Fantasia, where the magical rug, like something is controlling that rug. It's the spirit of the wind kind of thing. And so, since our childhood and before that, they're talking about very similar relationships with nature and with beings that we can't see, little fairies and pixies and leprechauns, again, St. Patrick. Right. What do you think is going on there? Do you think that, and I may have asked you this before, but it's always, it's interesting. Do you think it is just nature telling its own story through the consciousness of the people, and it's just coming out through story, it's just coming out through myth in their eyes? Or are some of these writers really engaged, really do they know this stuff? Do they know that nature was alive? Are they trying to release it to the consciousness of the people? Like what's going on there? Is it intentional, or is it just by accident that it's coming out through all of these movies? And you can give more examples in movies, but what do you think? Do you think that it's spirit calling out to the ones who are awakened to see? Because many people watch it and it's just a cartoon. There's nothing to it. But those who are awakened can see like the deeper connections, and they go out and actually try to communicate, and they see that they really do find a connection with the elements.
Well, so many good points and so many good questions there. Like, again, like what's participating with what here? Like what, and what's causing it, you know? There are so many examples, and I will hit on two of them that are specifically Disney, but even before people were doing movies, you know, Lewis was writing the Chronicles of Narnia, and he's got nature personified, and people just read it as a neat little children's book. And they're like, oh, Narnia would be great. Wouldn't it be great if the river could talk to you? Wouldn't it be great if the trees could talk and move? And wouldn't it be great if your dog could finally tell you what he's really thinking, you know? And we sort of like picture that as, oh, that's how fantasy is, you know? But I do think that, like Lewis, people they do know what they're doing. And because there's two storylines, and I want to I'll mention Moana and Frozen, specifically Frozen 2. The storylines are so specific that there's no way the writers don't know. There's no way. And you're right. And I don't know if it's a signal just because, you know, folks that are awake will see it. But I think my first guess would be, these are the people that wanted a way to express what they knew in their heart was true. And the typical spiritual environments are not open to it. So the standard traditional religious environments are not open to hearing anything about this. And so, well, where do you go if you're someone that has this in their heart? Like, they've got a story to tell because they know the story's true, but where do they tell it? You know, they can't go tell it from many pulpits, and they can't go tell it in many schools. So it's almost like you're alienated from the religious context and the academic context, because you're too spiritual to be academic and you're too academic to be spiritual. Where do you go? You know? So I think a lot of them are like, well, I'm going to write a screenplay. I'm going to write this story. You know, they maybe get into these industries that accept them for what they are, as these people that cannot be in one field or another, because they really are writing this. The two are becoming one, like this, you know, these two trees are becoming one tree. These, you know, this what it says in Ephesians about this one new man being formed out of the two, you know? So to get to the point here, the Moana story is a Romans 8 story, because in that story, creation has become angry and is fighting humans. Remember, the land stops working like it did, and the crops are getting diseases, and and Moana goes on this journey to find this almost like this Mother Earth spiritual being, but she's changed to this volcanic, dark, hated, like she's mad, right? Like she's mad because something's out of order. And the fascinating thing about that story is that it didn't take Maui, right? The who The Rock personifies so well, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, right? It didn't take Maui to fix the problem. It took a human being to fix the problem. And it really was that picture of Romans 8, when the sons and daughters are revealed, the sons and daughters of God, they're going to free creation. And that's what she did. She took that jewel, and it's like she gave that Mother Earth spiritual being her heart back, and she renewed it. And all of a sudden, it wasn't this thing that was against mankind anymore. Mankind and the spiritual being had come together and created this harmony. So you saw it in Moana. I thought that scene was beautiful when she walks up to the, I'm sure you've seen it, right? Like, she walked, and it's, it's all flaming and volcanic, and she's singing that great Disney song or whatever she's doing. And she's walking up like with the heart of the, whatever it is, and she's saying something like, I can't remember it exactly, but like, I know who you are and I know your name. So it's like she knew what she was seeing was not what it was created to be. And she had to go restore it and bring it into freedom, into the glorious liberty of the sons and the daughters of God. But it came because of a relationship. She knew who it was. It's that classic picture of how does Christ want to rule? By relationship. So then the other one is Frozen 2. And this one is even more specific. If you haven't seen the movie, I'm about to spoil the whole thing. So essentially, there's a place where mankind and nature were working harmoniously. And it stops working harmoniously when mankind builds a dam. And when the dam is torn down, mankind and nature work harmoniously again. And of course, in this movie, nature is represented as spiritual beings. There's a water-like horse. There's a little fire thing. The wind has personality and is even given a name. And if you're watching that again, knowing this key of what's happened in history, that dam that was built was the scientific revolution. That was when mankind cut off from our consciousness that there was this realm of spiritual beings. And because of that, we lost our ability to work with nature. And when the dam is torn down and the water can flow freely again, we suddenly get it back. And at the end of the movie, the technology that they're using is this spiritual connection with nature technology. So they don't send a letter because they put a stamp on it and they put it in the mailbox and the mailman comes and drives away with the mail. They send a letter by writing it, and they give it to the wind, and the wind takes the letter where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So it becomes like this renewal of even what we think about technology, that it's working in perfect harmony with nature. So whoever wrote that story is totally aware of this path that we've gone through and with humanity in these last, I don't know, the history of ever. We've gone through this process to where we are today.
The song at the end of that movie, Into the Unknown, like diving into the unknown.
You nailed
man.
that.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I didn't.
That was on pitch right there. That
so
was good.
No, that song is so good, man. And it's so, there's nothing like going to watch a movie. I mean, there's another one coming out. Disney and Pixar, they're on to something, man. If someone,
they are.
I wish that people would do more videos and talks like this versus, I mean, because you'll find all the negative videos. Disney and Pixar are doing this, and they're teaching you witchcraft, and they're doing you and there's so much of that. But if someone can look at that and see the beauty, there's a new one coming out called Soul. And I seen I just seen the preview. I'm like, oh, I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it. What was the other one too? Like with the colors, they had the little balls, and you only had so many. And like,
was that Inside Out? Is that the one you're thinking of?
Inside Out. It was like, there was like these your consciousness and your
Yes.
emotions and the grumpy
Oh.
and when that was like it's
I saw
hard.
that movie. Saw
Hard
that
not
with
to
my
cry.
daughter.
Hard not to
Oh,
yeah, I'm sitting there watching these movies that they take you on a roller coaster ride and they
Yeah.
impart some deep spiritual truth.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
always been there. It's in the Bible, but
Yeah.
you need an allegory. You need
Yeah.
these people to represent things for you. You need this person that represents your hatred. You need this person that represents your love
Yeah.
and your compassion and see them fighting it out. And for some reason, those who have the power to tap into that allegory, which is done through Disney, they're doing a great job. Pixar, those movies. Onward was one that I mentioned to you. It essentially, and you get this at the beginning, I'm not giving it away. It's all of these fairies and elves and magicians and all of these, they're doing life like we're doing them. So
Right.
essentially, they lost their magic. And so
They
you
went
got
through the scientific revolution.
you got the Minotaur, delivering mail every day,
Right. Right.
earning his paycheck, and so they lost their magic and there was no magic there. So they're trying to capture the magic, which I think is a heart cry in the hearts of every individual here, especially for the mystic and for the seer and the prophet. We see those, we see that something is missing, and we see through the nothingness of what they try to sell us to be content with when we know that there's more. The
Do you think
songs
when
are huge, that accompany that stuff. Avatar was big. Maleficent is one that you always break down as well. Lion, Witch, in the Wardrobe. I mean,
it's all there.
Many.
It's all there. I was just going to say that when you release this interview, you got to put it out there somewhere that at the end, TruthSeekah is going to sing Into the Unknown. I think that's got to be, it's got to be in there somewhere, because people will hang to the end.
Give me auto-tune. I'll sing it with auto-tune, man.
Oh,
There's this
good.
other one. Somebody, I haven't seen this movie, but one of people in our community sent me this song. It's from a movie called Smallfoot. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't seen it. I guess it's a Disney.
Smallfoot.
Well, I don't. Is it a magical movie? Does it stand out to you at all?
It
Because
didn't
there's
stand
a
out to me
song,
like
like a
the
the
others
theme
did.
song for it. It's
Yeah.
like talking about
Yeah.
seeking truth, looking to the sky, looking within. You can
Yeah.
hear the voice calling you, and like
Oh,
the
yeah.
song is amazing. And I've
Yeah.
only heard the song. What about the movie?
Yeah, it was good. Again, it didn't strike me like it didn't hit me like Frozen 2. When I'm watching Frozen 2, I was like, oh my goodness, they're telling the story of the scientific
Yeah.
revolution and
Yeah.
the future of humanity. Like they're
Yeah.
telling that story, and I didn't have quite that response to
Yeah.
it, but it was still good. I mean, it
Yeah.
was nothing wrong with it at all. But yeah, and you mentioned this, but when Frozen 2 came out, and I was like, folks, you got to see this. I had a parent actually tell me, like, I'm not taking my kids to see that. I don't, with
Yeah.
all the forest nature spirits and all
Yeah.
that paganism.
Worshiping
And it
nature
was-
spirits.
Oh yeah. And that was like in the moment, I didn't say anything, because you just, it's not always time to press the
Yeah, for sure.
blinking red button, but your heart breaks, because you're like, I wish we could just take 5 minutes and I could show you that Jesus acknowledges that there are these spiritual beings, and that they must have been created by God, right? So there's only one way that this works. Now, if some are fallen and against us, that's one thing. But there's going to be more that didn't fall in our forests than are ones that fell and are against us. So there's going to be something for us to work with and to redeem in order to go forward. But, that's what your heart says in that moment. Oh, I wish I could tell you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and slowly but surely, they hang around.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They'll watch the movie, and it'll click. You can tell them till you're
Yeah.
blue in the face. Listen, Jesus did it. No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Right.
It takes the Holy Spirit to reveal it to their hearts, and maybe it is.
So true.
And you may be watering, someone else gets the harvest. Maybe it is
Exactly.
watching Avatar, where it's like
Right.
everything clicks. Everything
Yeah.
is spiritual. Everything is
Yes.
magical. Everything is
Yeah.
alive. Chris Carter, man, I appreciate this talk, and I love it. We'll have to do it again, man. I love having you on again. Love sending people your way. Let people know where they can go to check out your work, what you have to bring to the table. You do ascensions and group sessions and stuff like that too. Let people know where they can check you out at.
Yeah, easiest place to go is just check out discovertheheavens.org. Just really easy, www.discovertheheavens.org. And that is the online place that'll take you to, there's a bunch of YouTube videos that anybody can watch where we've done ascensions and we recorded them just because honestly, people need it. Like you just, sometimes you need a little help doing that. And my link to my online classes are there. As you know, I love to teach. I just love it. I love to dig in and just to teach things from start to finish to get from A to B. So the online school portal is there too, and events that we do, it's all there at discovertheheavens.org.
Awesome. Make sure you guys check it out. Again, Chris Carter, love you, bro. We got to do it again.
Love you too. Love
Many
you
blessings,
too.
bro.
Loved it.
Shalom. Peace. Chris Carter, ladies and gentlemen. That's a good one. It's a good one. Searching for that magic, recapturing the magic. I'm not going to play this song just because I'll get pulled and get copyright strikes and all that stuff. But this is A Wonderful Life by Zendaya from the movie Smallfoot, or Zendaya. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The verse goes, take a look around and see the world we think we know, then look closer. Wow, that's deep. Just in that, look at the world and then look closer. I talk about holding a magnifying glass up to these different things, seeing the essence of it. There's more to life than meets the eye, a beauty to behold. It's all much bigger than we know. It's only just the beginning to unfold. So, let it unfold. Far beyond all reason in your mind, there's a world mysterious there for you to find. All these questions that we always have, all we are is curious. There's nothing wrong with that. So go round every corner. Search every part of the sky, 'cause a life that's full of wonder is a wonderful life. Dig beneath the surface. Find the lessons to learn. And then dig deeper. Feed your intuition. Don't leave any stone unturned. That's what I said at the beginning of this podcast. Be the seeker of truth. It's the TruthSeekah podcast. Listen when you hear it calling to you. You know it's calling you. It's deep, y'all. Going back into the course again. Basically, the sky above, the earth below, as above, so below. We're connected. We are the threshold where these two meet here on earth, below us and above us. Search out the mysteries of space. Going within to commune with that. And then the mysteries below, the earth and in the water. Especially, I wanted to do a video, but it's really strange to see some of the things that, some of the creatures that are in the deep sea, down in the midst of darkness. There is no light. Seeing these types of creatures with lights on their forehead and just the way that they move and operate. And there's stuff down there that we have no idea. We haven't touched. There's places we haven't touched the bottom of the ocean. That's interesting. And then looking at some of the different video footage of what we would call UFOs or types of spirits. I think a lot of these are spirits, they're alive. They're not physical craft, and some of these things that I've experienced in the night sky or in the day sky as well. They look similar. There's like, I've seen big entities that look like stingrays flying through the sky. Like, and it resembles the ocean. I've seen things that look like amoebas in the sky. There's footage of a lot of these things, and a lot of it in the deep ocean. It's the mystery of it all, and I think that if you're open, if you say hello, again, just make sure you cover yourself. Like, if you're a relationship, you have to have that relationship with your Father, who loves you, who's not gonna. If you ask for a fish, he's not gonna send you a serpent. If you ask for bread, he's not going to give you a stone. If you have that kind of relationship, which is a biblical relationship with your Father, he'll cover you. Ask the Holy Spirit. Make sure that you're in your right state of mind, that you have pure and good intentions, and you just want to say hello. I want to say hello. If there's a spirit behind the wind, I want to say hello. My name is Derek. I'm here to say hi. The water. I mean, come whatever. I think that God is willing and able to stretch your faith as far as it'll go. And guess what your faith falls back on? Your imagination. If you shall believe it, nothing shall by any means be impossible unto you. You can experience it. There's no cap on that. There's nobody else's experience is the cap. And everybody has all of these different measures of faith, as the Bible says, gifts of faith. And there is no cap. You don't have to. I mean, I'm ready to hear the most far out story and then go beyond. And that's what the Lord has. Jeremiah 33:3. If you call unto me, I will answer you and show you great and mighty things that you do not know and cannot find out. There's things that God has hidden from people, hidden from the masses, hidden from teachers, hidden from scholars, that they have not seen or heard, that will blow their mind. And the only way that you can find out these things is going directly to him. And going to the Father, he allows you to experience these things. I don't go directly to them. There's always, I'm like always in that conscious conversation and dialogue with the Father by way of the Holy Spirit through the Jesus, what he did to purchase me back, to right our wrongs, right? And if you see that restoration of all things being done, it's being done through Christ and what he did, not just for us, but all of humanity and all of creation through him. So, man, let that encourage you. You can go as far as you want. And if you just want to stay on the outer court, that's cool too. But I don't think you're listening to a podcast like this and don't want to dive in head first and don't want to search out the deep things of God, that you don't want to explain some of the things that you're experiencing. You come to the right place. I'm doing it with you. Report back to duty. Let me know what you guys have found. I'm doing it. I'm trying my best. I'm getting guests on here. They're doing the same thing. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. Thanks for hanging out. Really enjoyed this podcast. I love Chris Carter. Again, you guys know I mention his name as much as I can. Check out his work for sure. And if you want to support me, my work, get in on the School of the Mystics every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central. We're doing it tonight. We're gonna engage the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, through the breath. Come on, man. We're gonna get high on our own supply. There's some stress, some things that's been stressing you out, some things that you've been carrying that you just need to breathe through it. You need to let it go. Join us Thursday night, School of the Mystics, man. This is where we do it. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. We'll do it again very soon. Peace, peace.